That's a decision I'll decide when I decide and make my decision, and that will decide.
The cast departures on MASH weren't simple decisions. They were defining moments that reshaped the entire series from the inside out. Creative clashes, personal goals, and unexpected pressures all played a part, starting with one early exit that quietly shifted the show's direction. Today, we take you inside the real reasons these actors stepped away, uncovering the unseen forces and personal crossroads that shaped MASH's most important turning points. What unfolded behind the camera became just as compelling, and sometimes more revealing, than anything viewers witnessed on screen. First major exit, Stevenson. Stevenson's departure from MASH marked a turning point not just for the show, but for television storytelling. His character, Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake, was the affable, often muddled commanding officer who brought a humanizing warmth to the chaos of war. Early on, Blake served as the perfect foil to the rebellious antics of Hawkeye and Trapper, grounding the story with his mixture of bemusement and genuine care. Fans loved Blake's humor and vulnerability, and Stevenson's performance earned praise and awards alike. Yet, behind the scenes, the actor was growing restless. As the show's focus increasingly shifted toward Alan Alda's Hawkeye, Stevenson found his own character sidelined. MASH began as a true ensemble comedy, but Alda's growing influence as a writer and director soon made Hawkeye the emotional and narrative center. For McClane, this meant less screen time and fewer opportunities to explore his role fully. He openly admitted wanting to be number one, craving a leading role where he could carry a show on his own terms. This frustration simmered quietly until it reached a breaking point. By the end of the third season, Stevenson approached the producers with a decision. He would not return. This news shocked the studio and fans alike, but Stevenson was eager to pursue new opportunities, believing his talent and charisma deserved the spotlight. Hollywood was a tough landscape, especially for actors trapped in defining roles, and Stevenson wanted to avoid the pitfall of being typecast as just that guy from MASH. His ambitions were clear, but the choice carried risks few could foresee at the time. The producers saw a unique opportunity in this departure. Rather than send Blake off with the usual sitcom farewells, marriage, transfers, or quiet retirement, they chose a bold, unprecedented move. MASH was about war, and war didn't guarantee happy endings or safe returns. In the legendary episode Abyssinia, Henry, Blake receives discharge papers and prepares to go home. It feels like a joyful finale, full of farewell hugs and tears, but the episode closes with a cold, shockingly real twist. Radar enters the operating room with solemn news. Henry Blake's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan, and there were no survivors. The silence that follows is one of the most haunting moments in TV history. There is no music, no laughter, just stunned faces and the persistent beep of hospital equipment. This scene broke television conventions and changed audience expectations. Major characters could die and not return. It underscored MASH's commitment to authenticity amid comedy. The cast's reaction to filming that final scene was genuine, with most actors unaware of the script's ending until the moment it aired. Gary Burghoff, playing Radar, was told beforehand to prepare emotionally, but others were caught off guard. The rawness of their performances enhanced the moment's impact and gave viewers a taste of the real emotional stakes the show was willing to address. CBS was flooded with letters, some expressing praise, others outrage. Yet, the creative team stood by their decision, asserting the necessity of honesty in war stories. Stevenson's post-MASH career initially seemed promising. He landed a lucrative contract with NBC and starred in his own sitcom, The McClane Stevenson Show. attempting to capitalize on his charm and appeal. However, his new projects failed to resonate, with shows canceled after short runs and critical dismissal. Despite heavy promotion, Stevenson's efforts to establish himself independently didn't match the lightning-in-a-bottle success of MASH. In hindsight, he expressed regret about leaving, recognizing the show as a once-in-a-lifetime phenomenon. Co-stars like Alda expressed sadness and understanding about Stevenson's departure, while some quietly questioned whether he left too soon. Regardless, the role of Henry Blake remained the defining and most beloved part of Stevenson's career. When he passed away in 1996, tributes remembered him as a kind, light-hearted actor who contributed a special warmth to MASH's early seasons. His decision to leave gave MASH one of its most memorable and soul-stirring moments, forever linking his exit to the show's emotional core. The shock and finality of McLean Stevenson's farewell set a precedent, but not every exit was as dramatic or public. Wayne Rogers disappears quietly. Wayne Rogers played Trapper John McIntyre, one half of the iconic comedic duo alongside Alan Alda's Hawkeye that defined MASH's first few seasons. Their quick-witted banter, camaraderie, and rebellious spirit energized the 4077th, making their friendship one of the show's strongest foundations. Yet, behind this on-screen chemistry, tensions quietly grew as the series found its creative footing. Wayne entered the cast expecting an equal ensemble where each member shared spotlight and storylines fairly. Reality, however, began to diverge sharply from this expectation. As Alan Alda gained creative control, both writing and directing more episodes, the show's focus tightened firmly on Hawkeye. Trapper John gradually shifted from co-lead to a supporting role. This wasn't a matter of ego for Rogers. It was about narrative integrity. He lamented that his character's development stalled, becoming a mere nodding presence beside Alda's more complex and evolving role. The spark of the odd couple dynamic they had initially embodied was fading, replaced by a one-sided story centered around Hawkeye's voice. Unlike McLean Stevenson's public departure, Wayne chose to leave quietly and without fanfare. He did not renew his contract after Season 3 and didn't inform producers until shortly before filming Season 4. Part of this abrupt disappearance derived from an unusual contract situation. Wayne had reportedly never signed a formal agreement, but worked on a handshake deal. When the studio threatened legal action for breach of contract, there was none to enforce. This gave Rogers the freedom to just walk away without official closure. The creators were truly taken by surprise and had to hastily rework the first episodes of the 4th season. The premiere episode explained that Trapper John had left the army while Hawkeye was away, an almost unreal narrative solution without any proper farewell. Having a major character disappear suddenly with no goodbye or even a hospital send-off, like Henry Blake's, left the audience in shock. This silence created a mix of feelings, and viewers were still trying to come to terms with the fact of having two characters leave back-to-back and without closure. As a replacement for Trapper, the producers presented B.J. Honeycutt, played by Mike Farrell, a more practical and emotionally complex character. The mood of the series changed considerably, becoming more reflective and less dependent on the comic duo's antics of the first seasons. Critics were divided, but a number of them applauded the deeper, more serious storyline that followed. Ironically, even though Wayne Rogers had a quiet exit, MASH arguably reached new creative heights. Wayne Rogers' off-screen presence attained remarkable success that was very much apart from his acting career. With a history degree from Princeton and a brilliant financial mind, he shifted to being a financial investor and analyst. By the 1990s, he was routinely seen on Fox's Cashin' In, where he would openly and clearly talk about economic and policy issues like those he used at the 4077th. He left the show very suddenly, but there was no long-term resentment between him and the crew. Alda was very complimentary about Rogers and said that their friendship still existed and that he really missed him. At the age of 82, Wayne Rogers died in 2015 and was remembered as an actor with great talent, as well as a brilliant mind outside Hollywood. His role in MASH, although not long and ending in silence, had a significant impact on the series and the loyal viewers. His choice to leave was a clear signal of how the internal change of a show could very much influence the lives and aspirations of its stars, thereby drawing the audience into an affair that was characterized by the contrasting laughter being broadcast to millions. While some exits were public and dramatic, others were born from quieter struggles and personal pressures that eventually caught up to the actors. Gary Burghoff's emotional exit. Gary Burghoff portrayed Radar O'Reilly, the wide-eyed, innocent company clerk whose sixth sense for hearing helicopters before anyone else made him a beloved symbol of lost innocence amid the horrors of war. Burghoff was unique among the cast, being the only actor to reprise his role from the original 1970 MASH film to the long-running TV series. His Radar was softer and more vulnerable than the movie version, becoming the emotional glue of the 4077th. Yet beneath that gentle demeanor, Burghoff struggled deeply as the show progressed. By the late 1970s, cracks were showing. The demanding production schedule, combined with Burghoff's perfectionist tendencies, began to wear heavily on him. He battled anxiety and depression, issues rarely discussed openly in those days, which affected his ability to handle the pressures of fame and a grueling work environment. Compounding these professional challenges was the strain of being away from his young family, something he later admitted was one of his greatest regrets. Contractual tensions soon arose. Burghoff sought better pay, more flexible working hours, and fewer appearances per season to maintain his health and family life. The producers recognized Radar's importance and tried accommodating these requests, granting him time off and a reduced role at times. Nonetheless, the compromises weren't enough. Gradually, the emotional and physical toll led Burghoff to a difficult decision. In Season 8, he quietly chose to leave the series for good. But unlike Wayne Rogers' abrupt exit, Radar received a poignant and carefully written farewell. The two-part episode, Goodbye, Radar, showed him returning from leave to find the camp unraveling. He tries to manage the chaos, but ultimately realizes it's time to focus on his family and home, marking a moment of grown-up acceptance and change. The final scene, with Radar walking away alone against the Korean sky, a teddy bear abandoned on Hawkeye's bunk, encapsulated the bittersweet loss of innocence. This farewell resonated deeply with audiences, capturing not only the spirit of the character, but the emotional reality of saying goodbye to childhood and the innocence of the past. Burghoff's departure underscored the human cost behind the production's success, illustrating how the joys of playing beloved characters came with real emotional price tags for the actors. It became a defining moment in the series' evolution. Larry Linville, after MASH, made an appearance in a lot of guest roles in films and television, but never again got a part that was as important or as memorable as Frank Burns. His exit had opened the doors for him to take on a wider variety of roles, but at the same time had separated him from one of the most legendary characters in TV history. He was a key actor and contributed to MASH in such a way that you could not see an actor taking on an aspect of it his entire life. Linville's leaving was at once very classy and very mature in that he realized that sometimes growth demands quite a bit of familiarity to be left behind. His choice did the show's transition to emotionally more complex territory, and the audience remembered Frank's blunders with a mixture of annoyance and love at the same time. His acting set the standard of TV villains who are not just evil, but also the agents of change. The personal and emotional struggles of the actors remind us that behind every beloved character lies a human story, often as complex as the roles they play. Larry Linville leaves MASH. Larry Linville's decision to leave MASH stemmed from a growing frustration with the limits of his character, Major Frank Burns. Frank was originally crafted as the humorously rigid, petty antagonist whose obsession with rules and clumsy attempts at authority made him the perfect foil to Hawkeye and Trapper. Audiences loved to hate him, reveling in his insecurities and comic missteps. But as the series matured, Frank's character barely evolved, remaining stuck in the same one-note role that became increasingly narrow. Linville, an actor with far more range and ambition, began to feel confined by this lack of character growth. While other members of the cast found their characters deepening and becoming more complex, Frank stayed in a loop of immaturity and cruelty. This stagnation wore on Linville, who saw his talents being underused and feared being typecast in a role that offered no real artistic challenge. By the end of the 5th season, he made the bold choice not to renew his contract. Unlike some departures marked by drama or sudden exits, Linville's decision was straightforward. He simply walked away, asserting that he had taken Frank as far as possible. There was no firing, no scandal, just a quiet but decisive step towards seeking more fulfilling work. His exit forced the show's creators to rethink the tone and character dynamics, as they suddenly lost the cartoonish villain who had been a staple of their early comedy. MASH was prompted to deal with more complex and multifaceted struggles, not just the usual lively and exaggerated ones, thanks to the absence of Frank Burns as the easiest target. The comedy, imperceptibly yet surely, moved its center from slapstick and cruelty to irony, humanity, and moral ambiguity. This transition was one of the major factors in the show's turning point, from just another popular sitcom to a TV legend, and even more so, its emotional and storytelling impact. The disappearance of Frank opened the door for the other characters to develop further and to explore the depths of their personality beyond the usual archetypes. In the story of the show, Frank Burns was written off a character. He was given a nice promotion, and thus he disappeared from the storyline. This did help in giving closure, but the audience still felt the huge loss of the character's presence, which was contagious, if very annoying. Frank had been a negative character, but he was still accepted by the MASH family as one of them. His leaving signified a turning point in the creative process that altered the show's DNA and prompted the writing of new storylines. Larry Linville, after MASH, made an appearance in a lot of guest roles in films and television, but never again got a part that was as important or as memorable as Frank Burns. His exit had opened the doors for him to take on a wider variety of roles, but at the same time had separated him from one of the most legendary characters in TV history. He was a key actor and contributed to MASH in such a way that you could not see an actor taking on an aspect of it his entire life. Linville's leaving was at once very classy and very mature, in that he realized that sometimes growth demands quite a bit of familiarity to be left behind. His choice did the show's transition to emotionally more complex territory, and the audience remembered Frank's blunders with a mixture of annoyance and love at the same time. The end of Frank Burns's era coincided with the arrival of a very different character, one who would bring sophistication, complexity, and a new challenge to the series' tone and its viewers' expectations. This transition would dramatically reshape the fabric of MASH. Enter Charles Winchester. David Ogden Stiers arrived on MASH in Season 6, stepping into the void left by Frank Burns, but bringing a completely different energy to the show. His character, Major Charles Emerson Winchester III, was everything Frank was not: cultured, intelligent, arrogant, and deeply private. Winchester wasn't merely the new antagonist. He was a layered, slow-burning challenge for the others, especially Hawkeye and BJ, and served to elevate the show's sophistication. Winchester initially appeared as pompous, snobbish, and insufferable, traits that made him a marked contrast to the rougher personalities of the 4077th. However, over time, cracks appeared beneath the polished surface. He wasn't heartless, just guarded and proud. This complex mix made him far more than a cartoon villain. He was a man wrestling with his own vulnerabilities, even amid the chaos of war. Unlike Frank Burns, whose limited character arc led to an early exit, Winchester remained until the very end of the series. His development allowed audiences to see new facets of the show's themes, such as the emotional cost of war seen through a sophisticated, often conflicted lens. One of his most memorable haunting scenes was his final moment, teaching Chinese patients to play Mozart. It captured his transformation and the bittersweet beauty the show increasingly sought to portray. Steers brought a graceful restraint to the role, infusing Winchester with depth and dignity. The character's slow-burning growth allowed MASH to explore moral complexities without resorting to caricatures. His presence provided a counterweight to Hawkeye's irreverence and BJ's grounded warmth, enriching the storytelling with fresh tension and insights into pride, loss, and humanity. Despite his importance to MASH's latter years, Stiers chose not to continue the character beyond the show's conclusion. Offered a role in the spin-off after MASH, he declined, feeling that Winchester's arc had run its course. His departure in itself was a form of poetic closure, signaling an end not just for the character, but for a significant chapter in the series' evolution. Beyond MASH, David Ogden Stiers enjoyed a varied career, including voice roles in Disney classics and guest appearances on television. In 2009, he publicly came out as gay, explaining that earlier in his career he had avoided disclosing his sexuality out of concern about typecasting and career repercussions. His quiet dignity and extraordinary range earned him respect in the industry, irrespective of this late revelation. Stiers passed away in 2018 at age 75 from bladder cancer, leaving a legacy not only as a gifted actor, but as a brave individual who lived his truth. Winchester's role remains a testament to MASH's ability to evolve, embracing darker, more thoughtful narratives while maintaining its heart and humor. The shift in characters reflects more than casting changes. It speaks to the series' willingness to mature, adapt, and confront new emotional depths in the face of war's ongoing realities. The women of MASH. In the predominantly male world of the 4077th, the women of MASH faced unique challenges, both on and off screen. They had to carve out space and be seen amid the chaos of war and the relentless humor that often centered on the men. Among these women, Major Margaret "Hot Lips" Houlihan, played by Loretta Sweet, stands out as a figure of persistence and transformation. Initially introduced as a caricature, strict, by the book, and often the butt of jokes, Margaret's character evolved into one of the show's most nuanced and respected portrayals. Loretta Sweet refused to let her character remain a mere punchline. With every season, she infused Margaret with intelligence, warmth, and vulnerability, building a woman of substance who balanced professionalism with compassion. As head nurse and a decorated officer, Margaret became a subtle but powerful voice, questioning the war's cruelty while maintaining unshakable dedication to her duties. This growth mirrored larger social changes and reflected much of the quiet strength women had to summon in that era. Margaret's journey was not only a triumph of character development, but also a testament to Sweet's determination as an actress. Her fierce advocacy ensured that Margaret was not overshadowed by her male counterparts, securing a lasting presence throughout MASH's entire run. Remarkably, Sweet was one of only 4 actors to appear in both the pilot and the finale, embodying a continuity that anchored the show's evolving narrative. Throughout the years, recurring female roles like Lieutenant Ginger Bayliss and Nurses Cutler and Kinnison appeared and disappeared, but none left as significant a mark as Margaret. This consistency allowed viewers to see a strong female presence grow alongside the evolving tone of the series, from comedic relief to a complex participant in the moral conflicts of war. Not only the storyline, but also the character of Margaret defied many stereotypes of war and television. Her vibrant and powerful character made it clear that the women in war were not just background figures. They were the main, professional, and thoughtful people who were fighting for their rights, even during these hard times. This subtle revolution arc added much-needed depth to the show's perspective of humanity under pressure. Loretta Sweet once made a remark about her dreams for Margaret, stating that she wanted her to be a woman of substance. And she kept her word, giving life to a character that is still very much alive in the audience's mind as a representation of power and complexity. Her influence not only altered the portrayal of women on screen, but also opened the door to the female characters of the future, no matter which genre, be it drama or comedy. Margaret's growth was a part of MASH's overall transition to a more mature tone and theme. In a series that showed characters in their most naked and honest forms, she was still very prominent, creating a compelling mix of power and understanding, order and feelings. This very fine representation augmented the emotional depth that made MASH great. Thanks to Margaret and her women's help, the series expanded its viewpoint, illuminating for the audience that war's price and bravery were experienced by everyone, not just the men in the front line. The same thing about characters, and the same thing about the main theme of the series, a powerful human connection. As the women of MASH fought to be seen and heard, the show itself was reshaped by the changing dynamics of its cast, affecting both its tone and reception. Impact of cast changes on the show. The numerous cast changes throughout MASH's 11-year run did more than shuffle roles. They fundamentally altered the show's rhythm, tone, and storytelling depth. Each departure and arrival marked a shift, forcing writers and producers to recalibrate the series' balance between humor and heartbreak. While some losses initially felt like blows to the fanbase, these transitions often opened the door to fresh perspectives and deeper emotional complexity. The early exits of Henry Blake and Trapper John jolted audiences, challenging the norms of sitcom permanence. These departures underscored the show's unique blending of comedy with the harsh realities of war. They reminded viewers that MASH was not just lighthearted entertainment, but a portrayal of life's fragility under extreme conditions. The raw honesty of these exits set MASH apart from contemporaries, establishing a precedent for authenticity in television. Replacing key characters led to a tonal evolution. The introduction of B.J. Honeycutt brought a softer, more introspective dynamic, shifting the show away from its original buddy comedy edge. At the same time, Charles Winchester's arrival added sophistication and moral ambiguity. These nuanced shifts reflected an increasing willingness to explore the psychological and ethical burdens carried by those in wartime, enriching the narrative tapestry. The loss of Frank Burns also deeply influenced the show's direction. Without a cartoonish villain, MASH moved beyond slapstick antagonism toward irony and humanity as sources of comedy. This allowed the series to grapple with more complex social and personal dilemmas, elevating it to a new level of maturity. Such character-driven growth kept fans engaged and critics applauding well into the later seasons. Beyond the storylines, the personal struggles and ambitions of the actors themselves fed into the show's evolution. Actors seeking creative fulfillment or battling off-screen challenges influenced the pacing and focus of episodes. The production's efforts to accommodate these shifts sometimes led to creative breakthroughs, but also to tensions behind the scenes. Nonetheless, These real-life dynamics injected authenticity and urgency into the performances. Audience reception fluctuated alongside the cast's changes. Early departures sparked concern and occasional disappointment, but many viewers embraced the new characters and directions as the show deepened. The ability of MASH to sustain empathy and humor despite upheaval is a testament to its resilient writing and compelling ensemble. It adapted rather than faltered. Critics often praise MASH for its refusal to become stagnant, lauding how cast transformations became opportunities for reinvention. The show's legacy as a poignant war dramedy owes much to its evolving cast chemistry and the way it navigated losses. These changes mirrored the instability of war itself, an ever-shifting battlefield both on and off-screen. The cast changes remind us that behind every great show's success lies a dynamic interplay of personalities, ambitions, and stories, both scripted and real, that shape its enduring impact. Legacy of MASH's cast evolution. The evolving cast of MASH shaped not only its storylines, but also its place in television history. Every departure and arrival reflected real-life pressures, ambition, creative conflict, and personal struggle that pushed the show to grow and adapt. These changes kept MASH fresh across its long run, even as it tackled heavy themes with humor and heart. The cast's victories and hardships became part of the show's lasting identity. MASH broke ground by embracing honest portrayals of war and its emotional cost. Sudden and quiet character exits underscored the unpredictability of life in conflict zones, mirroring the turmoil faced by the actors themselves. Bold decisions, most famously the death of Henry Blake, redefined what television storytelling could attempt, proving that even comedies could confront tragedy directly. The introduction of new actors to the cast has widened the emotional and thematic spectrum of the show. Integrity was the steady moral voice of B.J. Honeycutt, while the character of Charles Winchester represented grace and depth. Thus, the show went on to explore new territories beyond the early stereotypes and to intensify its mixture of humor and drama, which required the actors to be as versatile as their characters. In the background, the situation of the long-term commitment caused problems. Some players had to deal with getting burned out, being anxious, or needing to be creative. In particular, the departure of Gary Burghoff made the emotional burden of acting out such difficult material clear. The personal conflicts and difficulties were as important as anything shown in the pictures. The transition of characters might be from a viewer's perspective, VN Weird Thing, but it was still a resilient series. The old relationships went away, and new ones appeared. Nevertheless, the show kept on being kind-hearted, humorous, and human at the same time, healthily maintaining its constant change. The adaptability of MASH was incorporated into its power. The impact of the show has stretched out a lot more than its airing time, setting a trail for future series to follow in terms of blending comedy with great emotional truth. The changing and sometimes leaving actors contributed to the longevity of this legacy. MASH is a classic because its performers have been honest and brave, willing to take on the imperfect and challenging roles, thus creating a living art that is still molded by its people. In the end, the legacy of MASH is the one of change, a never-static series that at all times mirrored the disorganized truths of life, war, and the artists that brought it to life. MASH's cast departures weren't just credit changes. They were turning points that reshaped a television classic. Each exit came from bold creative moves or personal crossroads behind the scenes, revealing the human stories that continue to make the show resonate today. Thanks for joining this deep dive into MASH's evolution. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, hit the bell, and watch the next video appearing on your screen for more classic TV insights.